Okay, hello and welcome again to a new episode of the KewCast. I'm John. I'm joined again by my good pal Eddie.
I'm Eddie.
You're Eddie. How's it going?
It's crazy, man, but good.
Yeah, you had a big week.
Yeah, the last kid was moved out into an apartment, so just getting all her stuff together and into her new place has been daunting, but done.
Okay.
Done now.
You're empty nesting it.
Oh, my goodness.
Is it quiet in your house now? Eerily quiet?
It's almost like too quiet. I want to put on some white noise or something just to fill the space.
Like walking around in the Shining set or something.
Yeah, you're a little bit, John.
Yeah, we've got a lively home. I've got my youngest is a 12-year-old. We've got 17 down to 11 actually. So got a few more years before they head
You're
off to
not
college.
quite thinking about retirement yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
Retire
you know
from
what?
this? I mean, come on.
I'm never going to retire from this.
Exactly.
I'll keep doing it as long as I can.
All right.
All right, Eddie, we've got a good show today. We've got some latest news. We're going to talk about whether or not these pickleball facilities that are popping up everywhere are sustainable. We've got some paddles of the week, and I'm not going to mention what they are just yet because we may not talk about them this week. We're going to talk about it in a pod. I might clip it out because. Just because.
You're so fickle, John.
Yes. And then we got some Q&A.
Yeah.
So this is an experiment. That's a very short show for us in terms of the layout. Do you think we can fill up an hour with this? I feel like it's going to be a 45-minute show.
We've said this many times before, John, and we ended up just blowing stuff out of the water.
We never were able
let's
to
not
come
commit to anything.
in under an hour. All right. Well, let's jump in. So first, I wanted to update everybody on the People's Choice Pro Awards poll. So it's who is your favorite pro? And I updated it regularly with what paddles are they playing with currently. So Ben and Anna Lee have been fighting for number 1 and 2, going back and forth. Anna Lee was up most recently. Ben retook the number 1 spot over Anna Lee. The differential there is tiny, though. If you go in and you can look at the spreadsheet, I'll link to it. And I'll link to the poll, too, if you want to update or vote new. And there's a score that shows, like, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down to 50, obviously. But there's a score that shows what the actual score is. And it's like it's like a decimal point difference between Ben and Anna Lee. So I'm sure it's going to end up switching again. Wanted to mention some notable jumps, though. So Tyra Black jumped up to 5th place. She's now in 5th place, just behind Anna Bright.
Do you know where she was prior?
She jumped up 2 this week. But
Okay.
She's been steadily coming up
right.
each week. So, she is winning hearts and fans just right and left. I like to see that. I like Tyra a lot. She's a good person, excellent player. Augie Guh, biggest jump of the week, jumped up 6 spots, and he's now just behind Tyson McGuffin down in the 20s, I think, which makes sense because he is killing it at these MLPs.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal playing. Good guy, too. Megan Dizon. Actually read it straight. I forgot to put the N in it. Mega Dizon. Megan Dizon and Noe Cleef both jumped up 4 spots, so good on them. And welcome a newcomer to the...
We were just talking about him.
Jay DeVilliers edged out Colin John, so he's now at the 50th spot. And so, yeah, he's been playing amazing, too, out of this world. I like to see Jay surging. He's one of the old schoolers.
See, John, we talk about these people, and all of a sudden they become fan favorites.
Nothing that they do. It's all about
Right.
what we're saying about them. So, yeah, I'm glad to see Jay in there. And I'll put the link to vote. And, again, you can spend as much time on it as you want, but it's also super simple. You just take a name and you drag it up or down, right? And you can there's 50 of them there. There's actually more. I put it like 60 on there now because I want some of them to kind of bubble up, if people
John,
choose
is that
to.
a one-shot deal, or can you go back in and kind of change your rankings around?
You can go back in. I'm keeping an eye on it, though, to make sure nobody puts a bot on it.
Right.
Suddenly we got some random pro at number 1. But, yeah, jump in. I love this concept, and it's fun to see, what people think of the pros. Now, there was a new paddle sighting, so on that same spreadsheet, you'll see, what the pros are playing with, their most recent sightings. So thank you to the people who are constantly emailing me and telling me, hey, I noticed so-and-so was playing with this paddle. So this week I only have one change that I saw, which was Catherine Parento playing with the Boomstik.
Boom.
She's not playing around anymore.
I assume it's the elongated?
The elongated, yeah. Yeah, in fact, the Boomstik is now UPAA approved. And I talked about this a bit last week with the Tom Barnes interview, but there's a little bit of confusion on which are approved and which are not. So the elongated and the wide body are both provisionally approved. Mm-hmm. And Tom was expressing some frustration about that because that shouldn't be an avenue anymore because that's not really a thing. Well, it's ended. No, it ends in September 1st. Anyway, you're not allowed to apply for provisional approval anymore, but they're both on that. And then the elongated without the MOI weights is listed on the certified list, which is PEF and the whole works, So that provisional approval is just basically like deflection test and grit and all that. Not grit, but spin. Anyway, a little bit of confusion on what is actually approved at the UPAA level. Nevertheless, she's playing with the one I saw her playing with had the MOI weights and it wasn't elongated. So there you go.
I didn't realize there was a model without the weights.
There's not for public sale. I also asked Tom about that. It's actually that video is not doing well. People don't really like to watch interviews too much, but there's a lot of little nuggets in that. So one of the things that came out of that is that they are offering pros ones without the weights because pros are so particular about where they want the weights. Mm-hmm. And Tom, I was like, well, why don't you offer that for the general public? Because a lot of, paddle enthusiasts love to manipulate weight too. And he's like, it's not in the works for this. He thinks that Selkirk thinks this is the best location for 80% of the people. And, you can add weight, but unfortunately you can't take away. Those things are semi-permanent. Although he did say, it's possible to take them off. I would not recommend it because when I pried mine off with the pliers, very hard to get off, and it pried the edge guard off with it. So, and I don't know if that would void the warranty. I wouldn't do it. I would not recommend it.
So those weights just sit over top of normal edge guard. There's not like an indentation in the edge guard. It's just kind of what you would see in a normal paddle.
Yeah, so that you have this like electroplated, shiny looking hard plastic, and directly underneath that is bronze. I thought it was copper, but it's actually bronze. There's a little bit of tin in there. And these are both glued together, and they're both glued onto the edge guard. And when I tried to pry it off, the edge guard separated from the unibody carbon fiber seam beneath it that was glued to. So
don't do it.
But don't do it.
Yeah. It's actually pretty good the way it is.
Yeah, that's where I like it. I don't feel any need to add any weight or wouldn't want to take any off. But, I get it. Some people like a heavy paddle and other people like whatever. So I've
been doing a lot of like that 9 and 3 o'clock waiting on my paddles these days, and it seems to be working out well.
Yeah. Yep. I've migrated up the paddle face too. I started off just like around the neck.
Right.
Didn't want to increase that swing weight. And then I went up to like 8 and 4, and I still use that mostly, but especially on shorter paddles, I go a little higher, usually 9 and 3, sometimes even higher. Mm-hmm. For elongated paddles, I still stay pretty low. Okay, good stuff. Eddie, let's move on to the next bit of news.
Yeah, I love this topic.
Yeah. So I ran across a Reddit thread, and it is talking about whether or not all of these new pickleball facilities we see opening all around us are sustainable and how many of these will still be open in 10 years? Is it going to continue to grow, or will it stabilize, or will we see a lot of them go out of business, or some mixture of those options? So before we throw in our opinions, let's get into some statistics here. And this is taken from Picklehead, which everybody knows this website, but if you go on there, basically you can search for courts around you, pickleball courts, and they have a very extensive database of courts around the U.S. And according to their stats, the U.S. is adding about 130 new courts each month, often in repurposed malls or big box retail. Now, that 130, there's some conflicting. I don't think it's their mistake. I think I was reading this differently in different spots of the website. I think it's a lot more than 130.
That doesn't sound right.
It's absolutely more than 130. So ignore that. But they're adding a bunch more new courts each month. Now, at the end of 2024, there were a total of 68,458 courts across the U.S., with 18,455 new courts added that year in 2024. And what I did is took 2025 to kind of compare the growth, see if it's increasing or stabilizing or decreasing. And so far in 2025, there are 77,210 courts U.S.-wide, which means that 8,752 courts have been added so far in 2025, up to August now. So this would suggest, if you break it down month by month, that we're slightly slowing down. So in 2025, if you divide the total courts that were added by 12 to get a monthly average, that's 1,250 courts so far in 2025. And in 2024, it was 1,500 courts per month. So not a big drop. And it could be an issue of it's not updated yet for August, and we're in the middle of August right now. So it seems like we're either on the same track or slightly below where we were in 2024, which is a bit counterintuitive to me because I feel like I've seen progressively more and more courts here in Colorado opening. Yeah, there were quite a few opening in 2024, but I feel like that steadily increased through
Oh my
today.
goodness, 2025 has been a nuts year, especially for clubs and indoor facilities.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's regional fluctuations and changes, but pretty cool stuff. All right. So even with more than 16,000 places to play, so that's 16,000 presumably facilities, not just pickleball courts. The Sports and Fitness Industry Association estimates we'll need about 25,000 additional facilities to meet the high demand in coming years. Suffice it to say, given the growth of pickleball, people are estimating we need a lot more facilities, a lot more courts. All right, let's get to the crux of the topic here. So do we think this is sustainable? And the Reddit thread was, majority of people there are saying it's not sustainable. This reminds me of X sport in the past, racquetball, whatever. And we're going to see a lot of these courts close down. It's just not a sustainable business model. And the reasoning is that even considering pickleball's rapid growth, they believe that many players will still choose to, we're talking about private facilities opening and potentially going out of business. A lot of players are going to choose to play for free outside when the weather's great. And the flip side of that is most of the business models, according to the naysayers, are reliant on keeping the courts full, indoor or mixture indoor-outdoor, all year round without any dips to stay in business, right? And if people peel off during good weather and play outside for free, then the facilities that are reliant on these people to fill their courts year-round are going to see a dip in the summer, and then they're going to go out of business. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, people who say that we're fine, all of these facilities will remain open and even grow. So pickleball's growth is not exactly slowing down. We all know the perks for pickleball. It's fun, it's social, it fills a lot of people's social lives, it's competitive, and it cross-cuts, every demographic. So there's no sign clearly that it's going to be slowing down in terms of people wanting to play. So if demand keeps up, then clubs will thrive. And the ones, I think, if you think about it in a little bit of a more nuanced way, the clubs that are going to survive are going to be the ones, I think, that will offer both indoor and outdoor options, and they will provide perks to members who keep annual memberships so that they will be able to get courts in the winter during the busy season or during bad weather during the business season. Like they might give preference to, the full-time members, annual members who pay, annually to get those courts. And that's been a problem that we've seen. You and I are pretty old school with pickleball. We started playing and shoveling snow off of courts here around Colorado before there was any indoor courts. And then when the indoor courts popped up, it was really hard to get a court in the winter. And I remember Lifetime, we both had memberships there. They would put courts open for reservation a week prior, and people were staying up till midnight And at the stroke of midnight, clicking that button 100 times,
right.
and still they'd fill up in 2 seconds. It was bananas, right? So alleviating that kind of bottleneck, I think, would be.
Yeah, I will say anecdotally, John, the clubs around here, when we transitioned into warmer weather, the traffic in those facilities is way down.
Oh, 100%.
So easy to get a court. And that doesn't really bode well for, a business that needs income 12 months out of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Not 8 months or even 6 in some places.
Yeah. Is that kind of your stance? Do you think we're going to see a big decline? A lot of these companies are going to be out of business in a decade?
I think these businesses are still kind of finding their way, like how to really make money and be profitable in this pickleball business. Food and beverage has something to do with it. Bringing in people for things other than pickleball, even for people that don't play pickleball.
Right.
We have this brand new club, Relish, that has 8 food stalls, and it's just a great place to hang out, whether or not you play pickleball. And I think that's kind of some of this experimentation we're seeing with these businesses is just how to keep people coming in all day long and all year long.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just funny you mentioned Relish because I've been going there this past week. I'm finally out of my boot and I'm able to drill at least. And it's full of like young people who walk in and you can just see it on their faces. They're like, oh, this is a big deal, And it's such a culture shift for pickleball that these kind of facilities are not coming in, and that they do it really well at Relish. But roll back time a couple of years ago, and we had the pickleball food pub, which was pretty cool, but that was small time compared to what we see today, and it felt like pickleball was back then was still just kind of like, it's this quirky game that kind of fun to play. I don't know if I want to do it, but now it's just like, oh, it's a real sport, and the younger people are coming in droves. So I think opening up these big facilities that offer food options and provide a whole culture for people to step into, it will, draw people in a bigger way.
I'd love to hear from some of these business owners, both on the kind of the independent front as well as on the franchise front, because it would be interesting to see, kind of roll back the curtain on their balance sheet to see what things look like. My guess is that some of these places are kind of dipping into their savings to stay afloat.
Yeah. Yeah. I lean a little bit more toward the skeptical side that these are going to thrive and continue growing. I think clearly there's going to be like any kind of capitalist venture where, a bunch of clubs are going to open and the best of those will survive and the ones that aren't managed correctly will go out of business. And then the ones that are managed correctly are going to grow, taking those customers that left from the poorly managed ones. So I think we're going to see not necessarily more clubs open up, but more courts centralized and bigger facilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do worry about the franchise model because I feel like there's the franchise fee on top of overhead fees for indoor facilities that's going to require them to constantly have their facility full of people, and that's just not a reality, because unless you live in some Alaska or something where it's horrible for 90% of the year, people are going to prefer to play outside during good weather. It just feels better, looks better, and it's free, right?
Yeah, I'd love to see kind of the climate map of the United States where there are climate challenges versus kind of the pickleball map, right? Because would a club in Southern California do well when it's 77, 85 degrees all year long?
Yeah.
I think that'd be a challenge.
Well, that begs the question, too. Like, would a club in Southern California that's all outdoor, is there an appeal to that over free outdoor courts? And I think, like you said, with the food court and pro shops and that sort of thing, I think there would be an allure and great courts and, no wait times or anything like that. I think that's...
I tell you what, when we were in San Clemente last year, I made a side trip over to Tustin, and there's, I don't know, maybe 12 or 15 free outdoor courts. I think there's a pickleball club there that kind of maintains things for a very nominal price, but the competition was excellent. Courts were available. They had a really nice system in place for making sure people got on the right court at the right level, and it's just a ton of fun. And I think that's the big competition for these facilities, right?
Yeah.
Is just so many opportunities for free pickleball or near free pickleball.
Yeah. And, I think one of the draws of pickleball when you and I started, you started earlier than me, but it was kind of the open nature of it. Like you go to a court and yeah, there were levels of play, but for the most part, it was just like everybody, you could go and find a game anywhere. But I feel like now that it's more serious, people are taking it more serious, and you see a lot more differences between levels, a lot higher level play, a lot of people coming in at 2-0 and a big gap in between those that it's feeling a lot more clicky and segmented these days than it was. So it's not that open. So I think the allure of a club in that sense would be, yes, we have open play for levels, and, you're slotted in according to your play level and you're not having a hard time finding people to play with.
What do you think of, John, the concept of pickleball as entertainment? You have these chicken and pickle type places where it's pickleball along with restaurants, with other games. It seems to be a good entree into pickleball, but I'm not sure that's where pickleball people are going to increase their skill level in the sport.
Yeah, so I haven't been to the Chicken and Pickle that opened here, which might speak to kind of this theory that there's just too many opening right now. Like if I haven't been to one,
right, then there's no demand for it for you.
Right. So do they have other stuff besides pickleball there?
Yeah, they've got yard games and that sort of thing.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what I think about that. I feel like pickleball is like I like that business model where they're putting restaurants and stuff and a place for pickleballers to socialize and even bring in people that aren't in pickleball to eat at these nice restaurants, that sort of thing. But I'm not so sure. Like pickleball seems to be all consuming for most people that play it, and they're not gonna unless they bring their kids and their kids want to play
or
something.
Out-of-town guests or somebody who's not played before.
Yeah. So. But I wish them the best.
So what happened to racquetball and bowling and all the sports we grew up with where we fought over courts and it was kind of the predecessor to pickleball in that sense.
Yeah. At some point we were talking about this yesterday, I want to bring in Rafa from Gearbox because Gearbox also makes rackets for racquetball. And he knows a lot of what happened with racquetball. And the power got too high on the rackets at some point, and there was the arms race in racquetball, and they weren't able to regulate
Sounds
it
familiar.
in time. Yeah, right. And and then it just became like it's crazy in a racquetball court. It's fun, but it's still just like you're always kind of like, am I going to get hit right in the back of the neck here with this ball at 200 miles an hour? So yeah, I think that was the main thing that killed racquetball, and also. Things like Paddle I don't think are picking up as quickly, even though it's a ton of fun, because it's a lot more expensive to play. There's not the free option to go play Paddle around the block. You've got to sign up for a membership. It's all indoors, plexiglass, and all these.
Right.
It's just a lot more overhead and just a bigger price barrier for that. So I don't think.
So John, you mentioned the kind of the power wars of racquetball. Mm-hmm. Do you think that or something else could be the downfall of pickleball?
Ooh, I like it. I'll think about it. Do you have something in mind?
Maybe that's our next podcast or a future podcast. I love pickleball, of course. I live and breathe it. I think it's one of the most perfect sports. Like you said, it's accessible. Mm-hmm. Anyone can do it. The learning curve is such that you can get out there and have fun on day one. But I'm sure people said that about many other sports in the past. So I have to be objective and think, okay, what could be those things that could threaten pickleball?
Yeah. Is there a Trojan horse in pickleball right now that we don't recognize? I mean, the obvious ones are like the speed issue and, can paddles become too powerful? And I think we've come a long way to regulate that. But, I can't think of anything.
I think you touched on one. When I started pickleball, it was very much a community thing, very open, very welcoming. Anybody could just come on and be greeted by 4 to 6 ambassadors, right, to teach them the game. And I think that still exists, but it's much less so. It's very much become segmented and cliquish and very much divided into small groups of like-minded, like-skilled people. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the downfall, but it's definitely a changing dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I think part of the allure for us and people coming in early too was there wasn't that huge of a skill gap in our peers, and even the pros. The pros have come so far in the past year alone in terms of their skill So part of that is amazing, the professionalization of the sport, but it's also not as easy for people to come in at the 2.0 level and think, you know what, I could be really good at this. Because that's what everybody thought 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. So close to being pro.
Right. And there's that illusion that still exists in pickleball. Because even coming in today, watching the pros, it's just like, I can do most of that. You can't. First of all, almost nobody can. But there's the illusion of it. But now, I don't think there's that much of that impression because the pros are just like, it's hard to watch a hands battle and be like, yeah, I could hang with that. At the pro level, nobody's really thinking that anymore, right?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, good stuff. Let's circle back to that. Unless you had more to talk about.
No, I'd love to hear our audience's thought on their perspective on the future of pickleball.
Yeah, me too. All right, paddles of the week, Eddie. We've got. So I may end up, like I said, clipping this one out because these paddles we've been hitting with are up for USAP PB Core testing, and one of them has approval, and the other two are still being tested. So they should be coming in. The results should be coming in any time. But if for some reason it doesn't happen this week, we'll clip this out and make it a addendum. We'll have an addendum pod. How about that? All right, so these are the new bread and butters, and they repurposed the Loco brand. Now, this is not going to be the final graphics. What they did is took the old Loco graphics and stuck it on these. Okay. These are not necessarily prototypes. These are exactly the same ones that were submitted to USAP. If they're approved, they're going to be the production models, so there's going to be no changes.
It's elongated?
Yep. Now, you got the 3 classic bread and butter shapes. So we have elongated, standard, which is their wide body, and then their hybrid shape. Now, do you remember hitting with the Loco a couple years ago? We did a review. I did a review of it. We did some court time on it.
I know I hit it. I don't have any recollection of.
Yeah. Which I gave it a good review, and it was a thermoform paddle, but it was on the control side of the spectrum. Even back then, very soft, but I liked it. It was just kind of like, yeah, this does everything well. But I was always like, Loco the name doesn't suit this paddle, right? It should be like crazy something, but it's
El Diablo.
Right. This is just like a very kind of control-oriented paddle. So now I feel like the name suits the paddle much better. Yeah. So we have not talked about this yet because you played with them today. I played with them for the past couple of days, so we didn't get to compare notes yet. Let's talk about the stats first, and then we'll see what we think respectively on how they played. So I have the elongated, hybrid, and standard all coming in at 8.0 ounces static. Mm-hmm. The hybrid was like 8.1. Otherwise, all similar there. Swing weight of the elongated, 121.4. Swing weight of the hybrid, 115.1. Swing weight of the standard wide body, 108.7. So right in the range of these 3 respective shapes. Twist weight, 6.12 for the elongated, 6.65 for the hybrid, and 7.29. So all pretty standard stuff. Nothing bad or exceptional about any of these in terms of their weighting and balance and all of that. And then I've got an X-ray here. So you can see it's an all foam core, full foam core. There is polypropylene in the handle, and this is what's now become classic for the top tier performance paddles today. A EPP, expanded polypropylene, center of the core surrounded by an EVA band. And you can see there's a little gap in between the two, as we've come to learn, makes the paddle play like it's already broken in out of the box and doesn't change much through time. Does that X-ray remind you of any other paddle?
Somewhat of the SURTR, yeah.
Yeah. So it looks very similar. It does not have the neck foam, so that there is edge foam in the handle beside the polypropylene, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't extend up in the neck like the SURTR. But yeah, it looks the shape of the EVA band and the shape of the internal EPP foam looks very similar to the SURTRs in that regard. And it has the honeycomb in the handle as well. All right, these raw carbon fiber, same shapes as bread and butter. So, Eddie, what'd you think of the paddles?
Well, despite its apparent similarity to the Boomstik, it doesn't really play like a Boomstik or feel like a Boomstik at all to me.
Interesting.
The Boomstik is a lot poppier. This is a much more firm and buttery feeling paddle than the Boomstik. I'd kind of call it the love child of the Selkirk and a body helix.
That's funny. I was gonna do if you took the child of two paddles thing too. But I have two different paddles.
Okay, interesting.
Body helix and Selkirk. So what does it share with body helix?
That buttery feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, a bit of the firmness of the body helix, but a lot of the power of the Boomstik without so much of the pop.
Yeah.
Because of that more firm, dense feeling.
Okay.
And that's true across all three paddles. I definitely had a favorite of the three, but they all have a similar feel, obviously.
Okay. What was your favorite of the three?
The hybrid,
Okay.
surprisingly. I was thinking it was going to be the wide body because of the incredible twist weight and
Yeah.
just the look of it, to be honest. But in playing with it, the hybrid gave me a little bit more power. And just generally more playability on court than any of the other three paddles.
Okay. Yeah. So interesting that you said you don't recognize it as being close to Selkirk. I do. I feel like it's the love child of the Boomstik and a Honolulu all foam, so the J2NF or the J2FC Plus. It also falls in between those two paddles in terms of firepower. You know, it's definitely more powerful to me overall, firepower, than the Honolulus, not as much as the Selkirk. I agree with you that the pop is not as poppy as the Selkirks, but it's livelier. I'd actually put the firepower closer to the Selkirks than the Honolulu, so pretty far up in the high power category.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me, the Boomstik is it's a funny paddle. Yeah, it feels stiffish. It's definitely lively off the face, but you get dwell time there. And I agree. I don't feel like these are. No, you said these are stiffer to you. Than firmer,
denser,
okay. Denser. Yeah, I agree with the denser feel with these. I don't feel like they're as stiff off the face as the Selkirk. So there's better control there with the pop. I think with the Loco. But yeah, I'd actually put them closer to the feel of the Boomstik than the Honolulus. And I'm not feeling the connection to the body helix flick as much as you are either. So interesting. If we triangulate between those three, maybe that's a perfect spot for this.
There's some step parenting going on in there.
And for me, I can't decide my favorite shape. The first day I played with them, I was expecting it to be the hybrid, and that was my least favorite of the three. For some reason, I couldn't control it. I feel like the hybrid's the more powerful of these three for some reason, not by a huge margin, but I sailed a few balls with the hybrid, whereas I felt like I was able to dial in the other two quicker. And yeah, so despite the fact I haven't played with elongated as my main for years now, I liked this shape and the Loco, and then the wide body treated me well.
Did the height and swing weight of the elongated bother you at all?
Yeah.
Same here.
It's a little heavier than what I want.
That's the only thing that kind of took me away from liking this paddle more.
Yeah. But the second day I played with them, I thought the hybrid was fine. I still can't decide which is my favorite of these three. I'm in a weird spot, Eddie, and I'm going to adopt a new main when I can start playing competitively again, but I don't know, I don't have an idea of which shape I want. I've been going back and forth between the Selkirks and the Honolulus and the gearbox, and I love the gearbox, and I'm still leaning towards that one, but when I'm playing with the Boomstiks, I can't decide which one I like better between the elongated and the wide body. It's just like they both have their perks, and I don't know which one outweighs the other for me.
Not to talk too much about the Boomstik, because this really isn't about that, but that paddle just has an amazing sweet spot. It's very broad. There's no hot spot in the middle. It's just generally a very playable paddle in that regard. This one feels a little hotter in the center than does the Boomstik.
Okay. I agree. That's why I was sailing balls. There's a bit of a hotter spot in the center.
Yeah.
That's a good observation. But I'd say that of all the releases in July, it was just, it was such an epic month for paddle releases. These are toward the top of that whole bunch that came out.
Very good paddle. And I don't know what the price is. My guess is in the
200.
Okay.
Yeah, and then 10% discount. I think still 10%, might be $10. I'm not sure.
I was going to say 180, but that with a discount, we're probably right there.
Yeah. So really good stuff. I think this will be a popular paddle. I'm glad to see Bread and Butter back into the performance paddle realm. You know, they've always been super solid. You know, but up until this paddle, I feel like, you know, there's never been like a Bread and Butter paddle that was just like people want to play with it because it performs so crazy in one particular aspect. You know, like these do. Just they're a high tier performance paddle and not just like a solid all around paddle. You know what I mean?
So this or the Honolulu?
It depends on what firepower you want. I think the Honolulu is a safer bet for most people, you know, to be able to control it. Like you said, that hotspot on these, it's not anywhere close to the hotspots of like the old gearbox,
right. No.
edgeless or anything like that. But it's a little bit noticeable difference between the peak power and a steeper drop off than the Honolulus and even the Selkirk. So, yeah, I think most people will be safer with the Honolulus, but I think these are going to be popular for people that have a Honolulu or tried a Honolulu and they're like, you know what, I need more power than this. Maybe not as much as the Boomstik, but close. And I don't want to pay $333 for the Boomstik. This is going to be the Boomstik.
Almost two of these. Just try different shapes.
Right. Indeed.
Well said, John.
Yeah. Anything else with this, Eddie?
No. Good paddles. Good offerings from Bread and Butter.
Cool. We've got no deep dive, but we're teasing the deep dive at some point down the road with Mr. Ballistic Gelhead here.
Does he have a name?
No, not yet. So we'll put it up to our listeners and viewers to help us name him.
What's he doing here, John? You want to?
He's
just
bobbling his
rocket
head.
out the ball.
So there is a ball cannon on the other side of this wall behind me here, and we're going to set it up and test safety glasses. That's going to be the legitimate use of these ballistic heads.
That's going to be so cool.
Yeah. And like you said, we definitely need to stabilize the neck. Well, maybe not. It'd be fun to see what the neck flexes. So, yeah, we're going to shoot it with the ball cannon and see if safety glasses, which are, what's the rating for glasses?
ANSI?
ANSI, yeah. If the ANSI ratings actually mean anything.
Or is it ASTM?
No, ASTM is like a testing standard.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then given that the ball cannon is also basically military grade and can shoot balls hundreds of miles an hour, if we can find a high frame, high speed camera, like 20,000 frames per second camera, then we're going to crank that ball cannon up to 200 plus miles an hour and shoot it and see what damage it does.
Love it.
A little bit of Mythbusters going on down here. We've got to find a myth to bust. So,
well, with a Canon and high-speed cameras, I think we can do a lot of work.
That's for sure. All right.
That'll be fun.
That's going to be fun.
Because
Eddie.
we all want to be safe on the court, and everybody touts safety, but there's really no objective standard yet that we've seen.
That's true. That is true.
How about some questions, John?
Let's move on to Q&A. And Eddie, I've got one for you this week.
Oh.
That you haven't seen yet because it came by email. One of our newsletter readers submitted the Ask Us a Question, and this is from Sean Doyle. And this is a very appropriate question for today because he brought up the term buttery. And he asks, help me understand the term butter truck, please. I played today with a friend's F1 XC approved elongated stock, and he got it just a few days ago and has only used it once. I was expecting somewhat of a plush or broken end feel because this is the paddle you call buttery. Mm-hmm. On drives and overheads and SURTRs, but to me it played very stiff. I love the Flick-approved F1XC standard. That's my main paddle. So what is butter? I think a buttery is soft and plush, and this played more like a 14-millimeter paddle with kind of a tinnier sound versus a thunky sound.
Yeah, I would not describe tinny as buttery. Buttery to me is kind of a firm plushness with very little vibration or felt vibration.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. So you're combining some metrics, but like firmness is one of these things, and then vibration damping.
Yeah, I think dwell is part of that too. It's that feeling of the ball sort of being pocketed on the face.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I understood you say it, but I'm glad somebody asked because I don't think it's clear to everybody, when you say buttery, what exactly.
Yeah. And I definitely have felt that more in that standard shape body helix than the elongated.
Okay.
Just the way that face is spread out a little bit.
So we've got buttery examples would be the body helix flick, these new bread and butter Locos. What are some other examples?
I think the TFG is a good example of buttery.
Mm-hmm. What's a non-buttery example?
The 007.
Mm-hmm. Anything 10 millimeters or less?
The Chorus Fire, I would say, is not buttery.
Okay.
The 11624 Vapor that you were maining for a long time, I would say that's not very buttery feeling. It's very stiff feeling.
So hollow and stiff is the antithesis
harsh,
of buttery?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
Can a buttery paddle be also poppy?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not necessarily pop. It's more like dwell, lack of vibrations, and density. Mm-hmm. I like it. All right, Eddie.
Anything to add to that?
No. That's kind of how I perceive it too.
Okay. John, this one's from Franco Cuminato. Does the J2NF have any kind of break-in?
A little bit. Loosens up a bit from what I can tell. But so far, I've not noticed any power output increase for the J2NFs. And this is based on, some preliminary testing, some drilling, and not heavy usage. But yeah, I noticed, like with all foam paddles, full foam paddles, things loosen up a bit, but not too much. And that's part of why the EVA band is separated. There's a gap between the EVA outer band and the EPP inner foam, because that prevents some of this dramatic change in the paddles. Have you noticed any break-in with it?
I was going to say I've noticed the same thing you were talking about with the FC Plus.
Oh, okay.
Just a tiny bit of softening up. Mm-hmm. Not a reduction in power, not an increase in power, but just overall a little bit more softness, plushness to the paddle than was there right out of the box.
Yeah. That's a good observation, and it might be because of the structure of the core. So the NFs, have the notches in the foam, like puzzle pieces. So it's going to be theoretically harder for those to separate, because they're locked into each other versus the FC Plus and all these other iterations of full foam paddles with EVA bands, which, is just a center circle basically with the EVA band around it. So there's, they're not locked in place, so they might loosen up a bit easier. Time will tell. We'll check back in after these paddles get more play.
John, our second question from Kim Leith 1378. By the way, a compliment, great pod per usual. But John, do you know the type of foam used in the SURTR?
On the SURTR, so many questions about the SURTR.
I know,
a lot of interest in the SURTR.
Yeah,
I do not. I assume it is similar to the gearbox and not so much similar to the rhombus ripple, in that the linear carbon fiber channels going up and down vertically that we see in the X-ray are filled with the expanding yellow foam rather than EVA. That's just a hunch. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's what's going on in the center, and then there's an EVA band surrounding it. I just feel like, that's what's happening in the gearbox. I just dissected the GX2 Power recently for that review, and it's just like all the other iterations of the STT core, where they're like those ribs of carbon fiber that are holding foam inside are filled with the expanding yellow foam, similar to the edge foam, typically in thermoform paddles. And then there's a band of EVA around it as well. So I think just looking at how skinny those are in the SURTR, I imagine it's more similar to the gearbox than it is to the Ripple.
SURTR's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had a good time with that one.
Yeah, for sure. And as I mentioned in last week's podcast, the reason why I haven't reviewed it yet, besides the massive tidal wave of paddles that came out in July, is that the owner told me he is iterating on it. So he's going to change the graphics, first of all, because a lot of people complained about that sword. And he's adding more grit, increasing the grit level a bit. And I think there's something else he's slightly changing in the core. So I don't want to do a review and it's immediately irrelevant because they've changed it. So I'm going to wait until I get the newer iteration of it. And if there's still enough interest in the public, then I'll definitely review it.
Great. Looking forward to that. One more question, John. This one's a little bit personal for you. Westside Pickleball 007 asks, would you pay for the Boomstik with your own money?
I wonder if Westside is playing with the 007.
Maybe so.
He's like, never again will I pay $333. Actually, they're $300 or something, $275, I think. No, those are 008s. Anyway, for the Boomstik, that is a good question.
What's the last paddle you actually bought?
I buy paddles on the regs just because sometimes I don't feel like asking companies.
Yeah.
So I bought.
Do you remember the last one?
I'm about to buy a Pro 4 Perseus to test because mine broke and I don't know. I'm tired of asking Yola for
What do you
for
need,
new
a 14?
stuff. I need the 16. I have 14s, but yeah. So I think the last one was actually a Yola. I bought another of the mods so I could dissect one. So anyway, would I buy a $333? Man, that's hard to say because I was a paddle junkie before I ever started doing the reviews, and I spent more money than I should have on paddles. Like there's constantly a paddle box on my doorstep. So I want to say probably, but I would definitely test it first. I would not buy it blind. Now there's a lot of reviews out there and a little bit of discrepancies between the reviews. Like people have noticed that you felt like the Boomstik was kind of mid-tier power, and I put it at the top, and some others put it top, others put it mid. So that alone might dissuade me from just going off of one or a couple of reviews. But I definitely would want to play with it first. But I feel like the performance of that paddle, after playing with it, I'd probably end up spending the money.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you? Would you?
Well, I will say the last paddle I purchased was the Gearbox. What was the one before the GX2?
GX2 there was 2 iterations of that.
Right.
And then, it was like the Pro Ultimate.
Yeah, maybe that was the one I purchased.
Okay.
But if I had $300 or $300+ to spend, I probably would buy something else.
Besides the Boomstik?
Yeah.
What would you go for besides?
I'd probably get the GX2.
Yeah.
The power.
Now, that wasn't a consideration. Like that wasn't an option. Like if you could only buy if you had $333 and you could buy one paddle today.
Okay.
That would change your things. That would change things. Man, that's a rough one because I still can't decide between which one I'm going to main. The GX2 or the Boomstik or the Honolulu for that matter. But there's also the potential for buying a couple of Honolulus. For the price of one Boomstik. Yeah, I can't decide. It would probably make me not buy either one of the paddles for a good while until I tested out both of them.
Okay,
so,
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
All right.
Very good, John. Well, that's all the questions we have for this week. Any wrap-up thoughts?
Where are we at time-wise? Did we actually come in under an hour?
Oh, yeah, way under an hour.
Or 50 minutes, Eddie. Our prediction was almost dead on. I said 45 minutes.
It's what the people want.
No pithy comments at the end here. How about you?
Well, you're heading on a trip, right?
Oh, yeah. Heading to China next week on Friday. And actually this week, when this podcast will be published this week, I'll be in China. It's basically the 6-0 factory tour, and I hope to get in some visits at some other factories if possible. So if most of you probably saw all of the content was produced as the paddle reviewers were invited back in May, I think it was, and that's right when I injured my foot. So I had surgery, could not do an international flight, and I put it on the back burner. And so I'm going by myself. And Dale will be there from 6-0. I'll visit
Exciting.
Top Carbon, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
And I'll be in North Carolina, so if you're at Method Road Park or Pickles and Play or Lifetime, you may see me out and about.
Excellent, Eddie. All right,
There's
good, sir.
And a boot.
And a boot. All right, thanks, Eddie.
Yep. See you, John.